Dwight David Eisenhower's story begins in small-town America. He was born in 1890 in Texas, but grew up in Abilene, Kansas, a tight-knit community that shaped his character. One of 7 brothers in a modest family, young Ike learned the values of hard work, faith, and perseverance from an early age. He loved sports passionately, especially baseball and football, and spent his boyhood days working on chores and dreaming of athletic glory. In fact, years later, Eisenhower joked that as a boy, he wanted to be a professional baseball player, while a friend said he'd like to be president. "Neither of us got our wish," Ike laughed. In his teens, Eisenhower's determination was tested by a serious injury. He scraped his knee, and an infection set in so badly that a doctor considered amputating his leg. The 14-year-old Dwight flatly refused, reportedly declaring he'd rather be dead than give up playing ball. This grit and refusal to quit became a hallmark of Ike's life. He recovered fully, returning to the baseball diamond and football field with the same dogged spirit. Eisenhower graduated high school and earned an appointment to West Point in 1911, a golden ticket out of small-town life. At the U.S. Military Academy, he was an avid athlete, so much so that an injury ended his football dreams. Still, he proved to be a natural leader among his classmates, respected for his easygoing nature and steady work ethic. After West Point, Eisenhower married his sweetheart, Mamie Dowd, in 1916. They soon welcomed a baby boy, but tragically lost him to illness in infancy, a heartbreak that deeply affected them. A second son, John, was born later. Through it all, Ike remained devoted to his family, even as his Army career quietly advanced. When World War II erupted, Dwight D. Eisenhower's moment arrived. Though he had missed combat in World War I, 2 decades of service had prepared him well. By 1942, this steady soldier had risen through the ranks and was given command of Allied forces in North Africa. There, he led Operation Torch, the first major Allied offensive to drive back the Axis armies. His greatest test came on the shores of Normandy, France. On June 6, 1944, D-Day, Supreme Commander Eisenhower launched the largest amphibious invasion in history. The night before, Ike visited paratroopers, offering encouragement to young men about to risk everything. He knew many would not return. Carrying the weight of the free world on his shoulders, Eisenhower even drafted a note accepting sole blame in case the invasion failed. At dawn, as thousands of Allied troops stormed the beaches under horrific fire, Ike's strategy and resolve were put to the ultimate trial. The invasion was brutal, but it succeeded. France was liberated, and the tides of war turned decisively against Nazi Germany. After victory in Europe in 1945, General Eisenhower was welcomed home as a hero. Yet Ike remained modest, often crediting his troops and fellow officers for the win. In the post-war years, he served as military governor in occupied Germany, as U.S. Army Chief of Staff in Washington, and even as president of Columbia University. By 1951, with a new global rivalry intensifying, he returned to Europe as the first Supreme Commander of NATO, uniting Western allies against the Soviet threat. By the early 1950s, Dwight Eisenhower's leadership reputation was shining. Both Democrats and Republicans urged the war hero to run for president. Ultimately, Ike answered the call and ran as a Republican, pledging to keep America secure and on a steady course. The 1952 campaign popularized a new slogan, "I like Ike." Eisenhower's warmth, integrity, and reassuring smile won over millions. He was seen as the trustworthy figure the country needed after years of war and hardship. In November 1952, voters elected Eisenhower in a landslide. The former general, who had never held political office, now became the 34th President of the United States. He brought with him a sense of duty, discipline, and a team of experienced advisors, many of them fellow veterans, ready to help guide the nation. As he took the oath in January 1953, Americans looked to President Eisenhower with high expectations, hopeful that the same wisdom and steadiness that won the war could now win the peace. Eisenhower's first term began with a promise to end a war. True to his word, within months he traveled to Korea, a conflict raging since 1950, and helped negotiate an armistice that halted the fighting. The Korean War's end in 1953 brought relief to a weary nation and solidified Ike's image as a peacemaker. Yet the world remained tense. The Cold War with the Soviet Union cast a long shadow, with each superpower armed with nuclear weapons. Eisenhower adopted a firm strategy of deterrence, projecting strength to discourage aggression while carefully avoiding direct conflict. He knew the horrors of war and was determined to prevent a third world war. At home, President Eisenhower steered a middle course. A moderate conservative, he pursued fiscal responsibility while expanding Social Security and keeping popular New Deal programs in place. The economy boomed, lifting American spirits in the mid-1950s. One of Ike's signature achievements was launching the Interstate Highway System in 1956, the largest public works project in U.S. history. Soon, 4-lane highways crisscrossed the country, connecting cities and towns like never before. These roads transformed travel and commerce, and they doubled as vital arteries for national defense. After a landslide re-election in 1956, Eisenhower's second term brought new tests at home and abroad. In 1957, the civil rights struggle boiled over in Little Rock, Arkansas, when local authorities defied a federal court order to integrate a high school. Ike reluctantly but firmly sent federal troops to enforce the law and protect black students. Later that year, he signed the Civil Rights Act of 1957, the first such law since Reconstruction, to help safeguard voting rights for African Americans. These actions, though limited, signaled that the federal government would uphold equal rights when necessary. In 1957, the Soviet Union shocked the world by launching Sputnik, the first satellite. Americans feared falling behind, but Eisenhower responded calmly. He boosted science education and established NASA in 1958 to lead the United States into the space race. Abroad, Eisenhower confronted global crises with a cool head. He even rebuked close allies during the 1956 Suez Crisis, pressuring Britain and France to withdraw from Egypt to avoid a wider war. And in 1959, he hosted Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev in the United States for a goodwill visit, an unprecedented thaw in the Cold War. But tensions flared again in 1960 when a US U-2 spy plane was shot down over the Soviet Union, collapsing a planned peace summit. Through it all, Ike's steady leadership kept America safe and at peace. As the 1960 election approached, the elderly president prepared to hand over the reins. He had served 2 terms, presided over 8 years of peace and prosperity, and upheld American strength during a dangerous era. In January 1961, he left the White House at age 70, one of the oldest and most experienced leaders in U.S. history up to that time. But before he departed, he had one final message for the American people. In his farewell address, broadcast on national television on January 17, 1961, President Eisenhower spoke as a wise elder statesman. He praised America's scientific and industrial might, but he also issued a gentle, stern warning about the future. Ike cautioned against the growing power of what he called the military-industrial complex, the vast network of defense contractors and armed forces that could wield undue influence over national policy. He urged Americans to balance security with liberty and to guard against unnecessary military buildup. After leaving office, Eisenhower retired with Mamie to their farm in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Free from the burdens of power, he finally had time for golf, fishing, and painting, enjoying the peace he had helped secure for others. He remained a respected elder statesman and quietly advised the presidents who came after him. Dwight D. Eisenhower passed away in March 1969 at the age of 78. The nation mourned the loss of its beloved former president, who was laid to rest in his Kansas hometown of Abilene. Today, Eisenhower's legacy is all around us. We drive on the interstate highways he championed, a living network binding the country together. We explore space on paths he helped chart when he created NASA. The peaceful prosperity of the 1950s is often fondly called the Eisenhower era. Historians now rank him among the great U.S. presidents, citing his masterful management of both war and peace. More than anything, people remember Ike's personal qualities, his integrity, humility, and unwavering commitment to duty. He was a leader who didn't seek fame or fanfare, but earned the world's respect by doing what was right and necessary. From the dusty streets of Abilene to the halls of power in Washington and across the battlefields of Europe, Dwight D. Eisenhower's journey is a true American story. It's the tale of a humble boy who became a victorious general and a two-term president, guided by conscience and common sense. His life reminds us that great leaders serve with courage and compassion, and that a steady hand at the helm can guide a nation through even the stormiest seas. That is the enduring legacy of Dwight.